Greetings, Starfighters. Welcome to the final proper episode of Season 2 of Shameles Cashgrab, the last movie on the Life's a Beach set, and just in time for the end of summer. Allegedly. Anyway, Malibu Beach, and based on the back of the box description, which granted these things have turned out to be complete and total liars before, looks to be a story with a love triangle. I'm not particularly fond of love triangles, but you know what? As long as it's better than The Beach Girls, or Love Lines, or Private Resort, I'll probably be happy.
And the back of the box lied again. There really isn't a love triangle here. Thank goodness. But more on that in a bit. Let's go ahead and talk about this, the final movie in the Life's a Beach set. And, I'm going to go ahead and do this right now. I didn't do this, or at least I don't think I did, with the first movie in the set, comparing Hard Bodies to Pulse. But I'll just go ahead and say here, as a set closer, Malibu Beach, it is better than Eternal Evil. But anyway. Plot summary, courtesy of TalkFilmSociety.com, trimmed for length. Malibu Beach follows a handful of high school kids as they spend their first weekend of the summer boozing and cruising around the beautiful beaches of Malibu, California. There are beach bums, bikini-clad babes, fast cars, house parties, and so much more. There's really not that much more. As the last school bell rings, a herd of teenagers empties out into the parking lot and we're introduced to Dina, a beautiful young girl on her way to start her summer job as a Malibu Beach lifeguard. There's also Bobby, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed hunk who spends the majority of the movie driving around in his Jeep, vying for Dina's affection. There's also Dina's ditzy friend Sally, and Bobby's slimy dickhead of a friend Paul, who wants nothing more than to get a little action from anyone who's willing. Out on the beach, as the kids are kicking back and relaxing on the sandy shores of Malibu, an antagonist, if he can even be called that, and I didn't add the if he can even be called that was actually from the summary, develops in the form of Dugan, a bodybuilding, motorcycling, douchebag lunkhead. Yeah, it's kind of interesting looking at my script here. You can actually tell which parts of the script I wrote during the first 20 minutes or so of the movie, because those are the parts that are the harshest. Right off the bat, I have to ding this movie several points. Why? Because it features the return of... Well, technically this movie had it first, but I'm talking about the order the movies are in on the set. The return of the bikini-stealing dog. Reminding me of the Beach Girls is not something one wants to do if you want me to be kind to your comedy movie. And that's after we meet one of the main male characters of this movie, the aforementioned Bobby, who I was pretty sure was the same guy who played the bland love interest from the Beach Girls. It's like that movie is haunting me. And looking it up, yep, it's him. And just how forgettable is this actor, James Doughton? The dude was in Animal House, and I completely forgot about him. And his was not a small role, either. He was one of the main antagonists. He was practically the right hand of Dean Vernon. How forgettable do you have to be to blend into the background of Animal House? That's funny. According to Letterboxd, I have now seen 33% of the movies this guy ever did, and yet the only thing of his where I remembered enough of his face to go, oh, it's that guy, when I saw him again was The Beach Girls. Yikes. Poor guy. As for the actual movie I'm supposed to be talking about, it opens on a beach rock song that is just plain lame. It's not even bad enough to be interesting. I can't even make a joke about it. I thought about saying something along the lines that it would make the Beach Boys want to kill themselves so they could turn over in their graves, but honestly, that would be overdoing it. Plus, I don't really find jokes about suicide all that funny these days. Except for the one from Blackadder Goes Forth. That one's still funny.
That's right. And Field Marshal Haig is worried that this may be depressing the men attached. He's looking to find a way to cheer them up.
Well, his resignation and suicide would seem the only...
Interesting thought. Make a note of it, darling.
Also, the opening credit sequence reminds me of The Beach Girls, which in turn reminds me of Hard Bodies. I know this movie was made before either of those two, so a human centipede joke wouldn't really make any sense, but you can't blame me for thinking it. I'll give the movie this much, though. It doesn't waste time. The main plot starts pretty much immediately after the credits end. Like that. Not that there's much plot to speak of here. We get a parade of skeezy older men hitting on our main character, Dina, literally within minutes of her taking her position as a lifeguard. Well, okay, two, but it felt like a parade. And one of them, a bodybuilder, mentioned in the summary, then goes on to seduce a woman who was one of the main character's teachers. By the way, the summary mentioned that this was the last day of high school, but I didn't see any graduation gowns in the scene, so... I mean, maybe they just didn't want to bother with that, but... If these kids are supposed to be 18, it's not made clear, which makes some later scenes a bit uncomfortable. A little bit like Love Lines. Again, reminding me of a bad movie in the set. Not good. After that, we get a bunch of beach shenanigans, including that damn bikini-stealing dog I mentioned earlier, 3 times in just the first 10.5 minutes, after which point I stopped counting, and a kid being a brat. And Dina's lip movements not matching the sounds coming out of her megaphone. Did any of the other movies in this set have bad ADR too? Can't remember if they did or not. Anyway, the skeevy bodybuilder takes the teacher to his place without asking her first, I might add. She only makes out with the guy, though, before leaving, and he doesn't try to stop her, so hey, points for acknowledging consent at least. That's always a plus in movies like this. He does try to talk her into staying, but despite his size and weight advantage, he makes no effort to stop her from going past him through the door. That could have gone way worse. Then there's Bobby, who we saw at least attempting to have sex on the beach with his presumed girlfriend, turns out she's not, earlier in the movie, who also gives the big, hey, how you doing smile to Sally, the main character's friend, after he stops to help them change a flat tire. This is supposed to be our main hero, folks, or at least our main male hero. And we're supposed to root for him and Dina to get together at the end. Movie off to a really, really rough start. Like I've said. Let's see some stuff in my notes that I don't know why I wrote that. Okay. We go from there to the second most poorly lit bar I've ever seen. However, the most poorly lit bar I ever saw, I was there on $3 Long Island night, so I didn't complain. All this while the most generic 70s rock music imaginable is playing. I shouldn't be too mean. This movie had no real big-name actors in it, and it wasn't a major studio film, so they obviously wouldn't have had the budget to spring for real rock songs for the soundtrack, but could they have found something that sounded less like Creedence Clearwater's worst album? Not even the people who were in CCR want to be reminded of Mardi Gras, let alone those of us who've heard it. If Sean Fogarty had the Infinity Gauntlet, I'm pretty sure he'd use it to make everyone forget Sweet Hitchhiker. We go from there to a fire on the beach, another unfortunate reminder of the Beach Girls, but here it's not terrible. Not great either, but not terrible, so I'll take it. This leads to some macho posturing bullshit when the bodybuilder, who clearly still has the hots for Dina even after trying to take her teacher home, re-enters the picture. The testosterone level goes way up around this point in the movie, about a third of the way through, give or take a minute, but at least the initial metaphorical dick measuring contest is halted in its tracks by a stoned cop. More on him later, but spoiler alert, the stoned cop is probably the best part of the movie, and also the reason this movie is going to be surprisingly high up in the Season 2 wrap-up rankings. But I digress. Me digress never. We begin the second act of the film with a boring love song and more beach shenanigans. You can tell I just love that word, don't you? I think I've stuck the word shenanigans into about half the episodes of this entire series. Anyway, the asshole kid is back and fakes drowning to trick Dina into giving him mouth-to-mouth. Though mercifully, that exact cliche is averted when the dumbass starts almost drowning for real in the middle of his prank. Gotta give it to the speaking extra toward the end of the sequence who said you should have let him drown. I lulled. I mean, I also lulled there while recording it, but I lulled while I was watching the movie, too. A bit dark coming from me, but this kid was really annoying, you guys. We follow this up with a soda concession stand type guy who is quite frankly sexually harassing his customers and his coworker, but the women he does this to act like it's charming. Oh, right, this was in the 1970s. Treating women like people hadn't been invented yet. Yes, I know I stole that joke, but the guy I stole it from is both dead and a sexual predator, so I don't feel bad at all. Fuck that guy. Also fuck the soda concession stand guy. Anyway, the dog comes back again. Yeah, just when I was starting to actually maybe kind of enjoy this movie a little bit. Bring the stoner cop back, damn it. I guess the movie figures if we see him pull off a woman's bikini top 6 or 7 more times, we'll actually find it funny. Oh, speaking of the stoner cop, Bobby steals his car in order to race the bodybuilder, who doesn't actually have a car of his own and uses one that he takes from a nerdy kid introduced earlier in the movie. The nerdy kid has a name, but I don't care enough to remember it. About here is where I would put a fake what the fuck is wrong with you clip, except for 2 things. I don't know Nash and Tara all that well, or at all really, so I wouldn't really feel comfortable asking. And it probably wouldn't be as funny as when they did one for the Dom when he did his 50 Shades Darker review on Lost in Adaptation. One kind of funny thing about this street race sequence is that no one actually suggests it. The word race is not used once in the entire scene. So how did they know to do this? Did they broadcast to each other telepathically or something? I mean, I'd buy it. It's no less realistic than the 2 of them surviving their respective cars that are not their cars, going through a freaking brick wall. Seriously, look at this screen cap. Bobby, at the very least, should be dead. You realize this, right? Dude didn't even put on a seatbelt, and he hit a brick wall hard enough to practically pulverize the brick. Even if it was an old, shoddily built, crumbling wall, and it was a pretty low-built one, too, that's still an incredible amount of force. I tried to look up just how much force it would take, but none of the sources I looked at could seem to agree on the math, but that had to be a lot of newtons right there. But no, Bobby crawls out of the upturned vehicle, oh yeah, it flipped too, without even a scratch. The bodybuilder appears more hurt, and he not only didn't hit as much of the wall, his car didn't flip. He doesn't have a scratch either, but he stumbles about like he might have a concussion. What saves this scene really is Stoned Cop's comedic underreaction. Can you tell I really like the Stoned Cop character? This is depressing, is all he can manage about the state of his squad car. Like I said, this guy's the best part of the movie. And Bobby doesn't get arrested either, but he's white, so that's not surprising. Some more... Well, now I'm self-conscious about using this word, but fuck it. Some more shenanigans, but of the more harmless kind, so I won't complain. That little kid doesn't come back. Followed by that stupid dog again, this time swiping 2 bikinis in less than a minute. And believe it or not, there's still more than 25 minutes left to the movie at this point, and I've been droning on enough as it is, so I'm just going to see if I can bullet point the rest of the movie. 1. Couple of assholes give 2 of the supporting characters shit over the supporting characters spoiling their attempts to steal from a gas station. This comes out of nowhere and pretty much goes nowhere once they get back at the assholes by filling up their van with water from a hose. I guess they needed to pad the runtime. 2. We get a party sequence that surpasses the Beach Girls by both having better music and by being shorter. I like the set better too, but that's more a matter of personal taste. 3. Stoner Cop gets a few more scenes, but they are all too brief and he's not stoned in them, so boo, 0 out of 10 stars. 4. Bodybuilder guy, or Dukin, but I keep calling him bodybuilder guy in my notes, shows up at the party. If you guessed a fight breaks out, congratulations, you have more cognitive abilities than your average Trump voter. 5. Another boring love song over a montage played after the obligatory breakup scene that will all be resolved before the end credits. And by before the end credits, I mean in less than 3 minutes of screen time, rendering the breakup scene completely pointless. 6. Dina's parents almost walk in on her and Bobby having sex. I take it this scene was supposed to be funny, but no humor was detected. I mean, unless I guess the joke was that her mother keeps forgetting things, but 7. The completed sex scene that follows this is boring and feels like it was only interrupted in the first place to pad the runtime again. 8. Bodybuilder shows up again, while Bobby and Dina, and the 2 other characters, oh yeah, Paul and Sally, now I remember, while they're all swimming, and Bodybuilder calls Bobby a punk 3 times in under a minute. He clearly likes that word. And the 2 decide to have a swim race, too. At least they can't go through a brick wall on that one. This is all for no real reason, as Dina has already made it clear she's not interested in the bodybuilder, but honestly, at this point, I think the guy cares more about beating Bobby than about getting the girl, as it were. But hey, at least they use words to set up the race this time. 9. A scuba diver with a fake shark fin on his back shows up. As this is a comedy, you have 3 guesses what happens next, and the first 2 don't count. 10. Oh, but wait, a twist. A real shark shows up after the scuba diver gets out of the water. Well, real in the context of the movie, anyway. In reality, it is the least convincing shark model I can ever remember seeing. 11. The school teacher comes back, and this time she picks up bodybuilder instead of the other way around. So, full circle, and a happy ending, I guess? And apparently she's the owner of the bikini-stealing dog. Okay, did not see that coming. And 12, sitcom-style freeze frame for the ending, and credits. Well, looking at this script, I realized that I utterly failed to make it clear that I actually kind of ended up enjoying this movie after all was said and done. Random thoughts I had while watching the movie. Our final time-to-tits counter clocks in at 5 minutes and 58 seconds, which makes it either the second or third longest amount of time. This is all thanks to the bikini-stealing dog, just like in the Beach Girls. Only worse here, actually, because the movie implies that the dog did it on purpose. I am dead serious, even though I'm a little uncertain in my phrasing. This movie expects us to believe a dog would very badly want to see a human woman topless. Do I even need to go into all the things wrong with that? Okay, look at this screenshot here. It's not just me who sees it, right? That is Bobby wearing a t-shirt with the movie's production company logo on it, right? And I know it's not the cleanest grab of this I could get, but if I paused, there would have been menu stuff covering it and shit. We never really get to see it full-on in decent lighting anyway, so that doesn't help either. But I am reasonably certain that that is the movie production company's logo. One of the cops from the bonfire scene in the first half of the movie kind of looks like Roger Ebert. It's not Roger Ebert, it's just a passing resemblance. The other cop doesn't really look like anybody in particular. He's the stoned cop I mentioned earlier. Yes, his sequence in the film is reminiscent of the stoned Coast Guard officers from the end of Beach Girls, but unlike the Beach Girls, here the execution is way better. And also this movie came first. Forgive me if it seems like I keep bringing that up, but it's really more to remind myself than it is to remind you. Anyway, here I actually find myself chuckling at the law enforcement official getting high, as opposed to rolling my eyes hard enough to actually hurt myself. Like I'm pretty sure I've said before, execution matters as much, if not more, than intent in film. I could list the reasons cop getting high in Malibu Beach works better than Coast Guardsmen getting high in the Beach Girls, but that would probably get boring really quick, because it is not a short list from where I'm sitting. But yeah, I was ready to hate this movie right up until Stoned Cop came in, and he elevated the film pretty much by himself. I mean, there's some pretty funny stuff not with the Stoner Cop that comes after, but wow, if you were to only judge this movie by the first 20 minutes... Okay, this is purely hypothetical, but I can imagine someone who only ever saw the first 20 minutes of this movie watching my Season 2 wrap-up video and wondering why the hell it is ranked as high as it is. No pun intended. At about a half hour in, I'd realized that there hadn't been any swearing in the movie. In a movie like this, especially one with an R rating, that just seems odd. There was nudity and drug use, but no one said fuck. And at the halfway mark, I'm about 90% certain no one had said shit either. I think the strongest language anyone had used in the whole movie was when the bodybuilder kept calling people punk. Which, as I mentioned earlier, he does. A lot. A lot. Drinking game levels of a lot. I'm definitely not against swearing in movies. I'm not against swearing in general, if you watch my show. But I'd have been impressed if this movie had managed to go the whole running time, keeping its dialogue incongruously PG rated, despite, all the nudity and drug use and all that, and the sex and all that. But alas, it didn't take. 58 minutes in, barely audible, but loud enough that I didn't need closed captioning to confirm it, we get the F-bomb. I was oddly disappointed by that. And it wasn't even a great scene either, so you can't even call it a precision F-strike. That also would have been pretty cool. Speaking of that scene, though, I did get a laugh out of the end of it. See, what happens is our protagonists, Bobby, Dina, Sally, and Paul. Yeah, those are names. They break into a bumper car rink, and they play around in the bumper cars. Pretty straightforward. Then the manager of the place chases them off. That's where the F-bomb comes in. One of the guys, Bobby or Paul, I couldn't tell, tells the manager to go fuck himself. They drive away. Once the Jeep full of teenagers is out of sight, the manager just turns around, still looking serious for a moment. Then he smiles, and he gets into one of the cars himself. I'll admit, that was pretty funny. Final verdict. This movie was tough to rank at first. It's more boring than Hard Bodies in places, but it doesn't have any victim-blaming bullshit in it like Hard Bodies did. It is better paced and has fewer stupid side characters than the Beach Girls, in terms of both raw numbers and level of annoyance. But the actor from the Beach Girls, who was also in this one, he was a bigger douche in this one than he was in the Beach Girls. And like I said, he's supposed to be the hero this time around, not just the bland love interest. It avoids the trope I most feared it would lead into. The whole love triangle thing that was suggested on the back of the box. Much in the same way that Spring Break was better than I expected because of the description on the back of the box. But Spring Break was way more charming. This movie is a paradox. It has elements that make it better than movies I liked more than it, while also having elements that make it worse than movies I disliked more than it, or movies I downright hated even. But at the end of the day, I can't say I hate this movie. Why? Well, two things mainly. One, no victim-blaming bullshit. That's a big deal. And two, the stoned cop. No, I will not let that go. The dude was hands down the best part of the movie. The quality of the movie went up several notches whenever this guy was around. You know, I didn't think I was going to at first, but I've convinced myself. This movie is going above Malibu High in the final ranking. You may remember at the end of the previous episode that I said that Malibu High would only be knocked out of the top 5 if Malibu Beach surprised me, but Malibu High is staying in the top 5, but Malibu Beach also surprised me. Oh, Stoner Cop, whose name is Rodney, by the way, but I will always think of him as Stoner Cop. How I wish we knew you better. Final verdict for the set as a whole? Well, since the season 2 wrap-up is basically just going to be, my thumbnail feelings about the movies, I suppose I'll get a little more in-depth here. I'm not really sure it was worth what I paid for it, to be honest. I mean, yes, Hard Ticket to Hawaii is loads of fun. Spring Break is surprisingly charming. The second half of Savage Beach manages to capture some of the fun of Hard Ticket, although unfortunately the first half doesn't. And this movie, it had some moments, and it had Stoner Cop. Again, I'm not letting that go. I love this guy. But honestly, it's like, okay, say if you figure roughly half of Malibu Beach is genuinely good, and then half of Savage Beach is good, then you have Spring Break and Hard Ticket to Hawaii. You basically have 3 good movies out of a 10-movie set. And the rest are either just okay. Then you have one movie that's basically okay, that's okay for its genre, but not much else. And then you just got 5 movies that are just plain bad. That's only a slightly worse track record than the Strange Things set, but still worse. So yeah, not entirely sure the set was worth it. But then again, I might not have actually ever gotten around to seeing Hard Ticket to Hawaii, and I definitely wouldn't have watched Spring Break. So, I'm trying to remember how much I paid for it. That would determine whether or not this was worth it. It was definitely cheaper buying it on Amazon than it would have buying it from Mill Creek directly, so I guess in that sense, it wasn't a complete waste.